good evening to you, Missouri fans. Gabe, DeArmond, Jarod, Hamilton coming to you live from the press box at Memorial Stadium at Faurot Field after a 29-27 Missouri win over Arkansas that, despite what some of you out there seem to think, does not have me angry, does not have me upset, does not have anyone on this show in tears or breaking anything. Happy to be here talking about a win that leaves Missouri 6-6 on the season, headed for a bowl game. We don't yet know which bowl game. We'll talk about that. We have our preferences. Eli Drinkwitz shares our preference. We'll get into all of that. But a 29-27 win. I think, Jarod, and we'll get into it later, I'm still going to find a way to make people mad with my take coming out of this game. It's not negative. It's not negative. I want to say that off the top. But I think some people will disagree, but that's okay. We'll get to that later. Your just kind of, overall thoughts coming out of this one.
Brady Cook. I mean, everybody's gotten on him. I've gotten on him. Some people think I haven't, but I have. Game after game, it's kind of the same things. As far as some missing passes, touchdowns that happened today, there's at least 2 or 3 that he missed. But for the most part, these last 3 games, best 3 games of his career, probably. And he's stringing them together. He's the reason why they're in games. He's the reason why they won that 3rd and 4. Trusting him to make that type of pass on 3rd and 4. Because I asked you, do you try to win the game basically, or are you just going to run and conservative? Because they've been running and being conservative, getting these little 1-yard runs or tackles for loss in these moments all season. And he trusted Brady to make a throw, and he did that. So we've got to, just like how at the South Carolina game, we've got to give him some respect and some props for, doing what he needed to do.
Logan Marty says, is Brady Cook actually getting better? So we'll just start right there, because Brady is going to lead your notebook. He's the subject of the column I'm going to write. And the question I'm asking is, has this kid played his way into the conversation as Missouri's starting quarterback next year? So I'm going to give you his numbers over the last 5 weeks. Missouri is 3-2. In one of those games, the defense gave up 66 points. And in the other game, there was a freak penalty that you can argue whether it lost the game or not. But whatever. They were right there. That loss wasn't on Brady Cook necessarily. So his last 5 games, he's averaged 293 yards of total offense, 11 touchdowns, 1 turnover. That's winning quarterback play.
I mean, you're not getting an argument from me. I mean, the whole season, this is what Drink, and I guess a lot of people expected that he would be at to start the season. And it took until literally the final quarter of the last possession of the last game with bowl eligibility, battle line trophy on the line to do that. But he's at that point now. And, we don't know what's going to happen in a few weeks. Everything's going to be changed and stuff. But himself, he's played his way upwards. Every game, even I was telling you about the Kentucky game, he had a terrible first half. But the reason it was close, the reason why that punt block penalty mattered is because he made plays with his legs and got those 2 scores.
He is a significantly better quarterback than he was 6 weeks ago. And it was interesting, and sure. I'm sure you'll write about this. But he told us in the postgame press conference after the Vanderbilt game, or maybe it was even Friday night before.
He said Friday night before the Vanderbilt game.
Friday night before the Vanderbilt game, he told the team, he told the defense, he said, I'm not gonna let you down anymore. I'm gonna start carrying my weight. This offense is going to start carrying its weight. And look, it hasn't been perfect. Like, this is not a great offense. But they scored on 6 out of their first 7 drives tonight and staked Missouri to a lead. And when this team can play from ahead, it's not bad, man. It's like you can see the pieces there.
Yeah, and the thing is, when I think when we was walking back up here, I was telling you that one of the keys I see is the defensive players. They're starting to believe it. It was one thing at South Carolina, when the defense kind of had South Carolina strapped anyway. Like, it was cool that they scored 23, but the defense still won them that game. But you can feel from Isaiah McGuire and JC or Jalen Carlisle that, like, no, we can actually see the offense. They believe in themselves. They can actually do something, and it doesn't feel like a one-hit type of thing because they've done it the last 3 weeks. I mean, like you said, the Tennessee loss was something, but they scored 24 points. Last week versus New Mexico State, they scored 45 and it wasn't as great, but when Drink was saying we need to do better, it felt like he was talking about defensively. It seemed like that's how I was interpreting. So they're stringing together games, and now the defense, everybody's starting to believe it instead of it's just kind of what it is.
If Missouri had this offense all year, and look, I want to say Arkansas's defense is bad. They're bad. There's no question about it. But if they just had this offensive performance all year, which is Brady Cook had more yards rushing than any Missouri quarterback since James Franklin in the 2011 Independence Bowl. James had 142 that day. Brady had 138 today. So if they have Brady running, completing enough passes, and not turning the ball over, this is a 9-3 football team. They win Kentucky, they win Florida, and they win Auburn.
They win Georgia because they may be 10-2.
Yeah.
And my thing is, maybe, but
Georgia felt a little more to me like Georgia was capable of, if they needed more, finding more in that game. Florida, Auburn, and Kentucky weren't. That's the difference in those games to me.
I guess, there's just so much moving things with that, because I'm thinking if we keep the score the same and everything, and we just basically put the Brady Cook on this final drive that should have been on that final drive versus Georgia, then things happen or whatever, something like that. But I get your point.
But yeah, but if this is the offense we had seen all year, this is a 9-win football team, and we're talking about, hey, maybe the Citrus Bowl, And look, I will out myself here. Maybe we should have been a little bit more patient with a kid that had never been a starting quarterback, with a number one wide receiver who had never been a number one wide receiver, with a number two wide receiver who had never played college football, with an offensive line that was, iffy at best. Maybe I should have been a little more patient and let this offense become. Now, look, it's one game. I don't want to turn them into, hey, it's fixed. I don't know. Maybe it's not fixed. But today, I was impressed today.
The reason I'm not going to necessarily say that is because when you think back to the one-possession games, whether they were flukes or weird things, they could have won those games. How Brady Cook is, I guess prior to these last three games, the way we was thinking about him, they could have won those games. So I think he's earned both sides of the coin. He earned some of the backlash, and so does Drink in the play calling. But he also earns the praise on the other side for what he's been doing the last few weeks. Because I think a big thing is the schedule plays a part of this, though. I think it's softened up at the end.
Well, and I guess my point is, okay, this is his 13th start. Maybe it was unfair to have expected this in his 5th start,
Again, it's just, if they were getting blown out or 2 touchdown losses, they were losing by 3.7 points. It makes me feel like, maybe it was a little bit too much to expect from him, but at the same time, it seems like he's only a play or two away from doing it. And in the game versus Auburn, that wasn't even his fault. Kentucky, you can say that wasn't really his fault. He did his part at the end. There were some other things I don't know.
Yeah, this was his most complete game. It was his best football game. And maybe I should be a little less surprised that, hey, in game 13, he's better than he was in game 5, right? That makes some sense. John Long says the O-line needs an upgrade. And overall, it probably does. But I thought they were pretty good tonight, man.
This is 3 weeks in a row where the offensive line has, for the most part, been quiet. Now, this is probably the most you've kind of heard them. They had a couple penalties.
They had a penalty that cost them a touchdown.
They did.
And an eligible man downfield.
They allowed a sack. But for the most part, this is probably the most you heard them in the last 3 games, but it's still relatively quiet compared to what they were doing early in the year when they were getting 7-8 penalties per game, 8-9 tackles for loss, and a couple sacks. So Mimbo is really, doing his thing over there. Connor Wood has been relatively quiet. They played well. They do need an upgrade, though. They probably do.
The best thing I can say about Armand Mimbo is that I have not noticed he's been playing.
It's the best compliment for an offensive lineman.
And that's a good thing, right? I thought the offensive line was the key to the whole first half, because we were talking about it when it was happening. Arkansas was blitzing on every play. Like they were bringing 5-6 dudes on every pass play, it seemed like. And the line was picking it up. And literally, like Brady Cook even said, he said, all I had to do was split the line. And then I looked up and I was like, whoa. I mean, there were 30 yards. It was, in the game last week, the Chiefs-Chargers game last week, I've seen a bunch of breakdowns of Mahomes had like this 27-yard scramble or something late in the game. Well, it's man coverage. They're blitzing. Once you get past the line, there's nobody there. That happened over and over and over in the first half, and that requires two things. It requires the offensive line picking up that rush, which they did, and then it requires the quarterback recognizing it, which he did.
Yes, and with that, because like Drink said, you asked him, I think it was you who asked him, like, were you just planning to be more aggressive kind of thing? And he didn't – shy away from that. Yeah, they're ranked 119th in pass defense. They're 120th overall in total defense. That was the plan, and it wasn't to mean to be a shot at them, but that's where we got the best matchups. And when your secondary can't guard nobody, you're forced to blitz because that's the only way they're going to get help. Their front four is not, I guess they're running through. Their front three or whatever, they're not getting any, pressure on Cook. And so, yeah, once he got past the line of scrimmage, it was the Red Sea out there for him. So, And he made it work.
Yep. Logan says this is the type of game I was hoping Mookie Cooper would have when he transferred here. And look, Mookie was good tonight. Dominic Lovett was dominant. Luther Burden made the one big play for the 30-yard touchdown. The biggest play of the game comes from a freshman, Mekhi Miller. And you don't want to get ahead of yourself because – like we talked a lot. We talked even before the game. Literally every player on that field on both sides of the football was a free agent. Like we have no idea who's played his last game here and who hasn't because that's where we live in college football these days. But those are all guys who could be back next year. And like you kind of looked at and said, okay, I can see what they're – this is probably the first time I've said – I can see it, man. I can see what they could have here if they stick together and all get better next year.
Yeah, this is the second time in 3 weeks where it seems like they've actually had a receiving core of some sort. Like they did it again versus Tennessee where Toski got in it, Barrett got in it, Luther and Dominic, like actually using multiple receivers instead of just one person being the guy and then the other people are just disappearing. So, I agree with you.
Yeah, so this is what it really comes down to me, and this is what I'm writing about. T-Rise says Brady is fully maximizing his potential. So that's the question to me. Is tonight, is there another level for Brady Cook, right? If you give him another full offseason and you give him spring football and you give him the confidence, hey, we believe in you. We're not going to spend the whole damn offseason chasing every dude that has 2 arms and 2 legs. We believe in you to run this football team. Can he be the starting quarterback for this team next year? And can they be more than going into the last week of the season fighting to make a bowl game?
I think so, but I think they got to get an offensive line for him. His potential, I think he can be better with an offensive line. You see what he's had his best 3 games when the offensive line isn't letting him take dangerous hits. The hits he's taking off the scrambles and stuff, that's his business. But the ones behind the line of scrimmage, I mean, that's the offensive line. And so we've seen them play, not great, but they've got some resistance. And now he's passing well, too. It's not just running. We know he can run. So I think it can be better, actually.
Well, and there is something to – I don't know whether it's Eli Drinkwitz. I don't know whether it's Bush Hamdan because he's taken over primary play calling duties. This coaching staff trusts him in a way it did not trust him a month ago. I mean, I asked Drinkwitz the 3rd and 4 play because look, the smart play there, the easy play is run the football, make Arkansas use a timeout, punt it back to them, make them go 50 yards and kick a field goal to beat you in 1:50 with 1 timeout. I mean, this is what that's what this team would have done all year long is trust its defense. Tonight, it trusted its quarterback in a freshman wide receiver to make a play, and they made that play. So, everybody we talked to tonight talked about Brady playing with confidence. Well, part of the reason he has confidence is it seems like his coaches had confidence in him tonight. And I'm not sure that's been the case all season. So if you give him an off season of, hey, we believe in you. We think you're the guy. We're going to go out and get the pieces around you. Okay, now look, next year, the goal is not 6-6. The goal is not come into Arkansas 5-6 and make the Liberty Bowl or whatever. So with that year two, with making his 15th start as opposed to his second start to start the season, there will be a raised level of expectation. But I'm not ready to say after tonight that it can't be him next year.
Yeah, I mean, they do need to get the pieces around him, because if they don't have the pieces around him,
they have some of them.
They have some of them, but if they lose some pieces, if they don't get the right pieces or get whatever they need in the portal, I think we could still see kind of what we saw mid-season. That would be more so of the normal, because he just doesn't got the pieces around him.
And then in that case, look, that's not him. That's on the coaching staff, right? So
true.
The other main thing we're talking about is bowl games. So John Long says, see you in Memphis, Texas, Shreveport. Look, I think this is going to come down to Memphis or Las Vegas. And it really, so the way this works, however many SEC teams are in the playoff are going to be in the playoff. If Georgia wins the SEC, that's probably only one. But then two SEC teams are going to get in the New Year's Six Bowls, whether that's LSU, Georgia, Tennessee, LSU, Georgia, Bama, Tennessee, whatever. You're going to have three teams there. The team that's left over from those four is going to go to the Citrus Bowl. And then you are going to have a group of 6 teams, 7 if Vanderbilt beats Tennessee tomorrow, but 6 teams right now that are in these 6 bowls. It's the Texas Bowl, the Liberty Bowl, the ReliaQuest Bowl, the Music City Bowl, the Las Vegas Bowl, and one other one that I'm not thinking of. The SEC and those schools are going to kind of work together and like make the best for everybody. I mean, the schools can say, hey, here are our top 3 choices, and then the bowls are going to have their choices, and they're all going to work together. I think this is going to come down to one of 2 things. It's going to come down to playing Kansas in the Liberty Bowl, or going to Las Vegas and playing a Pac-12 team, Oregon State, UCLA, something like that. From conversations I've had, I think Missouri prefers Las Vegas if it's given that choice. But I don't know if it'll be given that choice.
We all hope, including Drink, that it's Vegas. But if they do face Kansas in the Liberty Bowl, or if that's who it would be their opponent, I could see them saying yes to that if, like, a UCLA – is UCLA still ranked? They still
I don't think so, but I'm not positive.
Oh, okay. Because I'm about to say, I don't know. I would think they still want to win the game. Like, the other stuff is cool, but I know they still definitely want to win the game. I don't think they want to be not overmatched, but I gotta put this, like,
the Pac-12 team would probably be a higher quality opponent than Kansas at this point.
Yeah, but because Kansas, they played somewhat well, and there's obviously this huge rivalry, and a lot of people would go to that game.
Oh yeah,
that may entice, maybe we should just go to Memphis.
And that's what I think the Liberty Bowl will push for, because I think they would love that. They had representatives at the game today. Now, Missouri played there in 2018. But look, Desiree Reed-Francois came from UNLV. She knows a lot of people in Vegas. Eli asked us tonight, where do you all want to go? And we all said Las Vegas. He said, I'm glad you said that. Me too. But he would take they would take if the SEC says, hey, it makes more sense to send Ole Miss to Vegas and you guys to the Liberty Bowl to play Kansas in a game that will probably fill the stadium, then that's what Missouri will do. I think those are going to be the 2 choices when it comes down to it. And I don't think it's like necessarily just going to be Missouri's choice. The Bowl's going to have something to say about it. The SEC and Greg Sankey are going to have something to say about it. I don't know about you, Jarod. I'd rather go to Las Vegas than Memphis, but that's just me.
I mean, I had just spent a year over in West Tennessee. I'm not, no disrespect, I'm not trying to go back there. I was just there. Want something new.
Right. Okay, so I'm gonna go try to run through some of your questions. Let's see. I would have to give credit to the wide receivers. Both Brady Cook and Connor Bazelak seem to throw the ball behind wide receivers. The difference is now they're catching them all. I mean, sometimes, but like he made some good throws tonight, man. Like you've got it can't all be when it's bad, it's his fault, and when it's good, it's because of the other guys. Like he deserved the main reason they've been better offensively is because he has run the football. He's averaging 72 yards a game on the ground in the last 5 weeks. And because that has become a big threat, it opens up some other things.
Correct. I mean, the only, to that person's point who just, that last one you put up, the only ball I can really remember where I was just like the receiver had to make an adjustment was the deep bomb to Lovett, where he kind of had to find it in the air, the over-the-shoulder thing. But yeah, to your point, like Brady being able to run is, in fact, the run game. And if you guys seen the run game efficiency, when he gets over 34 yards, they play better because that gives him more time to breathe. People can't just do whatever they want to. They got to respect him and his run game.
Yeah. So we've spent a lot of time on the offense and on the quarterback. Stuart West says the most impressive thing today, I thought, was the way Mizzou's front shut down Rocket Sanders. For the most part, he was never running free. He had a couple of real nice runs early that were mostly him. Like he just had patience and found a gap. But Missouri, even when they had given up 21 points at halftime, like I looked at the numbers in the middle of the third quarter and all of a sudden said, hold on, man, this defense has actually been better than I thought it was.
Yeah, it's let me check real quick. Rocket had 10 rushes for 47 yards. He did have that receiving touchdown. He had 3 receptions for 15 yards.
And part of the blame here goes on Arkansas, right? 10 carries for that dude?
Yeah, and as close as it was, you would think they'd run it. But, I mean.
Right, it's not like they had to abandon the run game.
But that front seven was – they were doing what they needed to do. And they had 6 sacks. So when you're in second and third and long, you just can't run it, especially because he hasn't been able to break any runs. The one big run he kind of had, there was a holding on it early on in the game. So, I mean, the front seven just did what they needed to do. Simple.
Yeah, no question. And, hey, this is a good point by Logan Van Zandt. Big thank you to Barry Odom for not spying the quarterback in the first half. I mean, that game for Missouri was screaming, just put a spy on the quarterback. Like, because – he was running we talked about it already. He was running all over the place.
Yes. He had his career high in rushing yards in the first half. He just set that at Tennessee with 106. He had 114 in the first half. I think if Bumper Pool is here, he's that spy. He was not there. At least I don't remember seeing him out there. I didn't see him today, but Bumper Pool would have had to be that spy. And I don't see him on the stat sheet. So that was a big hurt. For them, so it's tough.
Yeah, no question. Let's see. Before the show started, PlayStation saying, "Where is Gabe?" Dude has one job. Actually, my first job is to go to postgame interviews, so that's where we were. It took a while. Dominic Lovett did a stand-up comedy routine for a little while, So yeah, that took a little while. Let's see. Let's keep on going. Okay, everybody was just complaining that we weren't there. Mizzou fan number 7 says, just saw a tweet. Mizzou is 6-1 against Arkansas the last 7 seasons. Arkansas fans may be right. This isn't a rivalry, and rivalries are supposed to be competitive. Look, I've actually heard Arkansas media say that. This can't be a rivalry until Arkansas starts winning some of them. And Jarod, you pointed out before the game, you'd heard Arkansas has never won a football game in Columbia.
Correct. And it can't be a rivalry if, you can't manufacture them. I'm sorry. I can't do it. Right. You can't manufacture rivalries. I don't care if the states touch or whatever. It doesn't – everybody looks at they can tell you, oh, we're getting hyped up for this game and whatever. I think having the trophy is cool. That's the incentive or whatever. But bowl eligibility, I look past all we're not thinking about the trophy. I mean, we're not thinking about that. That was all BS. I think that's what they was just telling us. They knew what was on the line today, bowl eligibility.
Yeah, no question. One other guy I feel like we should talk about before we move on to some of the questions. Isaiah McGuire, and let's be honest, I think this was probably the last time we're going to see him. Separated shoulder, dude had 2 sacks.
I mean, yeah, separated AC? That's what he said? Separated AC.
Joint in his shoulder,
yeah. So, let's say he doesn't play in the bowl game. I mean, to me, if I'm a scout, that's just that's risky, but that's tough. And he performed, though. He had 2 sacks, 2 tackles for loss, 5 tackles overall. I mean, he's been their best defensive player, you could say, this season. I think also maybe rising up sneakily is Rakestraw.
Yeah.
Like if you look at his stats, Rakestraw, I'd say he's had the better year, although KAD leads the SEC in pass deflection. Rakestraw's had a really strong year. Tyron Hopper, I'm forgetting him. He'd probably have that argument with McGuire for the best play. But you know what I'm saying. McGuire's balled out, and even if he doesn't play in the bowl game, to go out this way, I think that says a lot about him.
Yeah. Freeway Jarod giving us $1 for each win Mizzou is expected to get this season on the over-under. Hey, big day for the people that bet the over because it was 5.5. So big day for those people. Jarod, we appreciate you joining us every week and tossing us a little bouquet there. So definitely appreciate that. But like, look, I've said all along, like all year long, people have said, well, we're almost this, almost that. And I said, you are what your record says you are. Look, this wasn't a giant step forward, but they've saved this season over the last 4 weeks. I mean, they've brought it from the brink of what the hell's happening here to, like I said, you've got reason to hope now. Right. I mean, they're still going to have to do it. And we're going to talk a little bit about it in a minute. I saw a comment, but you've got more reasons to hope than you had a month ago.
I will say that the hope is probably around the same as it was last year. And I don't think they got above where they were. They just kind of got it back to the middle with these last 4 or 5 games, back to where it started.
But a month ago, I didn't think they were going to get there.
Oh, yeah. A month ago, we were definitely on it could go as bad as 4-8.
Yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, I said after the Vanderbilt game, I said I didn't think they were going to win another game. And look, I was wrong. I've got no problem admitting that. And now here's the point that I said we're at least going to address. Jay White says, feels good, but December 5th looms, and it could be a different team in the bowl. There's no question. And look, this is not a Missouri thing, right? And we're not going to start pushing kids out the door. But every player in college football is a free agent, except the ones who have already transferred. I mean, like Mookie Cooper's already transferred. He ain't going to go sit out somewhere. Mookie Cooper can be here next year because he has to sit out if he transfers. But everybody who hasn't transferred can transfer. And it's not just going to be, well, this kid didn't play and the coaches pushed that kid out. There are going to be some surprises on every team where fans are going to go, I don't get it. Why is this guy leaving? Well, it could be any number of reasons. I mean, maybe he hates his teammates. Maybe he hates his coach. Maybe some other school paid him money. I don't know. But there are going to be guys that surprise us. So we talked about it a lot in the pregame. We're sitting here going, who knows who this is the last game for? There's a bunch of dudes that could leave.
There's a bunch of – and that's just talking about the transfer portal. I mean, they've got a number of guys who can be thinking, I need to get ready for the combine. Yeah, so –
I mean, like I asked Jalen Carlisle tonight if this was his last game at Mizzou, and he said only God knows. I mean, I would have a feeling Jalen probably has some idea, but
listen, I think that's a 99% nice way of saying, yeah, I'm out of here. But I can't. I don't think he has to get his.
I think he has to get his NFL evaluation. I mean, if the NFL comes back and says, "Hey, man, you got to go back," I think he comes back.
Yeah. Let me erase that. It's definitely if the league says I'm ready or I'm, a high day 3 or day 2, whatever they expect him to be, he'll leave. That's his first priority, basically.
Yeah. Appreciate Jason Lee giving us $10 out of his winnings from betting the over on 5.5. So, and look, I would ask for more, but I didn't tell you to bet it. I did pick him 7-5 preseason. I was wrong, but it was the over. Atheos Giolo says, by the time we play the bowl game, McGuire's shoulder will be a lot better coming from a guy who's dislocated it. It will be. Look, if I'm Isaiah's agent, I'm telling him, not for the Las Vegas Bowl, man. Get ready for the combine. There's nothing you can do in the Las Vegas Bowl that you haven't already shown scouts you can do.
Yeah, there's combines, February typically? It's a February thing, like right after the Super Bowl. It's like
I want to say it's March, but you might be right.
Yeah, something around there. I'd just hang it up if I were him, and just rest up
He's
and wait for the combine. That's what usually would happen for most people. I don't know why he'd be advised differently.
he's Tyler Beatty from last year. If he just comes out and says, "Man, I gave everything I had. I played my last game with the separated shoulder. I poured my soul into this thing for 4 years," not one person should be unhappy with it.
Yeah, I mean, especially just because y'all want the Vegas Bowl or the Liberty Bowl. If it was a New Year's Six, I get it. But
Sugar Bowl, sure.
Yeah, but not these bowls.
Yeah. Logan's asking how big this win impacts recruiting. I've always said I don't think one game has all that big an impact. Look, 6-6 is better than 7-5. If you can get to, or than 5-7. I mean, if you can get to 7-6, but like I don't think there's anybody that's going to go. I wasn't going to go to Missouri, but now I'm going to go to Missouri based on beating Arkansas. Maybe I'm wrong, but I just don't think one game generally has that big an impact.
I think one game in the aspect of the win-loss record kind of does, like just going to a 6-16 versus a 5-17 or 7-6. What I'm saying? Like going to one of those just is a little better than going to one that you think is more on the decline than even just being lateral or whatever.
Yeah. Freeway Jarod wants to know if you can transfer without sitting out if you've already used a free transfer, if you're a grad transfer, and I believe you can. There's so many different rules. I'd have to look everything up, but I think you can. I could be wrong on that. So, look, man, like we can agree, best game of the year, right? Most complete game of the year.
Yeah. I'm trying to think one real quick.
Because I feel like offensively they were better than they were at South Carolina.
Yeah, I was about to say South Carolina, but offensively, just getting those drives. I mean, they had a pretty lengthy, long drive or two in there, and then just 6 or 7 first drives are just getting points on the board. They will have to fix how those last 4 drives went, though. That, I mean, if the season was going on and they were doing that where they just fall off a cliff, it feels like, towards the clutch, that could be a problem. But
it felt like in the second half, Arkansas adjusted to take Brady Cook's legs away, and that's when the Missouri offense faltered a little bit.
That's probably about right. And so, this was the best game for the offense, especially in that first half, and then defense kind of closed it out how everybody thought they would for most games of the season. So they did what they needed to do. Everybody says Missouri's offense needs to start off hot, and then they would hope the defense will close it out, and that's what happened.
Yeah, I mean, good win, good crowd. I think they announced 55,000, something like that. And considering there were no students, definitely feel good about that. I don't know. I think I think the bowl game's important for this team because 7-6 is, especially whether it's Kansas, whether it's a name like UCLA, it's going to be a Power 5 team, and you're going to play a Power 5 team in a bowl game, whether it's Big 12 or Pac-12 remains to be determined. But that would be big. Another win over a Power 5 team, the record would be better than last year. So I think the end result from this year, because of the win today, will be, could it have been a little better? Yeah, but it's a lot better than we thought maybe it was going to be a month ago.
Right. And again, it's going 7-6, seeming like there's some type of progression. Wasn't that the theme of this week or maybe last week? I'm getting all confused. The holidays threw it all off, but what does progress look like to Drake and everybody? Do you have to win a certain number of games, or is there things you can see, behind the scenes or just on the field that looks like progress?
Yeah, it's kind of a combination of the two. Stuart, appreciate your kind words. We kind of enjoy doing this. It's a way to process everything for a minute before we sit down and write after every game, and appreciate those of you who have shown up every week. We'll kind of finish it out with this. Jarod says, does anybody else think Drink has been a wimp in midfield, end of a half, and 4th and short situation? So we kind of debated the end of the first half scenario in real time. And at first I kind of thought maybe you go for it, but there were about 55 seconds left. You were down 21-20, And in the end, I came around to thinking Eli Drinkwitz did the right thing. You go out there, you try to draw them off sides. They're probably not going to jump, but you burn 35 seconds in the process, and then you kick the ball because they're not going to try to score. I mean, it already felt a little bit like Missouri had dominated that first half, and they were down a point. If you make a mistake there, if you don't get that fourth down at midfield, and then Arkansas goes in and leads 24-20 or 28-20, I think you go into the locker room with a whole different feeling. And like Atheist says, like, it would have been devastating. I think that whole game goes different if Missouri goes for 4th and 1 and doesn't get it there.
Yeah, that was probably one of the better times where actually just trying to get them to jump off sides made sense. And Arkansas had 2 timeouts at that point, though. Now, you said, like, on 3rd down, I think they called the timeout before 3rd down, Mizzou did, with like a minute or so left. Right. And you said, I don't know if they should have done that. I didn't like that. That was a problem. But because Arkansas didn't immediately burn that timeout, it made sense for Drink to be like, well, if they're not going to do anything, let's just go ahead and burn it out. So it ended up being the right decision. Everybody wants to go for it, but it's kind of how the game went. It just made sense. And like you said, if they go down 24-20, considering when did they miss that 2-point conversion? Oh, that was in the second.
We'll talk about that. We'll talk about that in a minute.
Oh, okay. I was about to say that you add that the field goal and then that not getting that 2-point conversion later, like we could be talking about another 1 possession loss or something.
So there were 10 minutes left in the second quarter. They score.
Wait, this was the third quarter.
The third quarter. I'm sorry. Yeah. They score to go up 26-21. They go for 2. Now, Jarod's going to back me up. Before they even ran the play, I said, what the hell are they going for 2? Why are they going for 2 here? Why are they chasing points? You don't chase points with 25 minutes left in the game. And what did Jarod, I was mad because I thought when Arkansas got the ball back with 5 minutes left, I thought I was going to have to rewrite my whole column based on the fact that Missouri lost the game 30-29 because Eli Drinkwitz went for 2 with 25 minutes left in the football game.
There was some of our media friends were saying it was the right choice. Listen, it's not Madden. It's not a video game. You don't go for 2. You never
go for 2 before the fourth quarter.
You don't have to go for 2. You don't. First off, you're controlling the game. Like, Arkansas had a lot of points, but they weren't. Besides I think the first Arkansas's first score was their easiest score. After that, it just felt like things were so much harder. Like their drives were so much harder to come by. So going for 2, we just kind of looked at each other like he's starting to do that stuff again. That stuff that just starts adding up doesn't really make sense.
Yep. Cody says he wanted to turn it off with 2 seconds left because he didn't want to see a disaster-ridden loss. Look, man, if you thought Missouri was losing that game when Arkansas snapped it with 2 seconds left on its own 32, like whatever you have goes well beyond PTSD, man. I mean, that is impossible. A couple of people ask us, do we think Darius Robinson comes back? I'll let you go first.
He was another toss-up. I think he's kind of like JC. He's going to get his NFL evaluation, see where he would go.
I think Darius is going to leave. And I think he came in with Isaiah McGuire and Trajan Jeffcoat and all these guys. And I just kind of think he's one of those guys that, hey, hopefully it's the NFL. But even if it's not the NFL, he's been here. And I think his time's run its course here. And I think he might be look, they will welcome him back. If he wants to come back, you welcome that dude back. He's
Blake Baker said he was trying to recruit him back. Blake has already started.
He is a high-quality SEC defensive tackle. And if he wants to come back, you bring him back. If I had to guess, I think he probably is done.
I think, and you've kind of mentioned this in bits over the last few weeks, like, we're all talking about the offense and the retooling and the stuff they need to do in the transfer portal, but the number of NFL talent these guys have and then everybody being a free agent in the transfer portal, let's say they lose a number of guys to the league or the transfer portal, you're right. If I've been here 4 or 5 years or whatever the case is, do I kind of want to go through a rebuild on defense after we just had our best defensive season? Like, I just went through 2021 where we were terrible, then we got good. I don't know if I want to go through the unsure and all that stuff again.
A lot of crazy stuff to happen in the next few weeks. Mizzou fan number 7 asking when draft evaluations come out. It's usually they can get them sooner than this, but like the deadline to withdraw from the draft is mid-January. So everybody will have to know, by then. Generally, they'll have their evaluations by around the bowl game. But still some decisions could be made after that. So, all right, guys, look, it's almost 8:00. We still got writing to do, so we're going to go ahead and get to that. I'm going to have a column on Brady Cook and what tonight might mean for next year. Jarod's got his stuff coming, talking about Brady, Isaiah McGuire, Dom Lovett, all kinds of stuff from today. So appreciate you guys hanging out with us all year. We will do one of these from the bowl game, whenever the bowl game is, wherever the bowl game is, in all likelihood. So appreciate you guys joining us there. We'll continue to have the regular Tuesday and Wednesday shows as well. Hit the like button, the subscribe button, all that before you leave. If you're listening on the podcast, say some nice things about us, share us on social media. And also, I think I forgot to say this at the beginning of the show because I just was, but the 573tees.com logo has been in the top left corner throughout the show. This is the 573tees.com postgame show. So make sure to check them out. Christmas is coming up. I know your lazy asses haven't gotten any Christmas presents because I know mine hasn't. So you've been busy watching football, eating turkey, all that. 573tees.com. You get all your Christmas shopping done in one place. Great guys, great local business. They've been huge supporters of us and allowed us to do this show with you guys all season long. We'll allow it to continue for a bowl game, maybe a couple basketball games here and there. So support 573tees. Thanks for joining us. Last time from Faurot Field for this year. But we will talk to you again at some point.